The lord of the Oshi fief is slain by the former shogun's cowardly son. Oshi domain is then threatened to be abolished by the corrupt counselors, causing 11 of the most loyal Oshi samurai to stand up against and expose the corruption by bringing justice. That justice is found at the end of a sword. This is the premise of today's movie, Iechikudo's 11 Samurai, a story of a clan's desperate attempt to bring justice to an unjust situation by attempting a dangerous mission to kill a lord and son of the former shogun. Will the Oshi samurai be successful in saving their domain? Let's find out. This is the final chapter of Iechikudo's Samurai Revolution trilogy, 11 Samurai. I'm GojiraFerret, and let's begin. Rivaling the previous chapters, 11 Samurai would see an increase not only in quality, but also in action and choreography. Iechikudo would obviously be at the helm, accompanied by cinematographer Sadaji Yoshida and composer Akira Ikefube. The film would cast Isao Natsuagi as the lead. You'll recognize him in recent films, such as The Emperor, starring Tommy Lee Jones. Toei Company would see the production of the third chapter of the Samurai Revolution trilogy, seeing an original release on December 16, 1967 by Toei Company under the title Juichin no Samurai. It would see distribution many years later on November of 2012 by Animigo, where the film would garner a modest amount of appreciation. Like this film's predecessor, The Great Killing, which was inspired by the obscure death of Tokugawa Tsunehige in 1678, 11 Samurai 2 was inspired by real-world events, with a loose historical basis inspiring the character Nariatsu, using Nariyoshi Matsudaira as the model. Nariyoshi would die in 1839 at the age of 19 under mysterious circumstances. A hunting party led by the young lord Matsudaira Nariatsu, played by Kantaro Shuga, wanders into the neighboring Oshi domain. The arrogant Nariatsu slashes an innocent peasant in disgust for interfering with the lord's pursuit of a deer. This situation becomes even more dastardly as the arrogant lord fires an arrow into the eye of the Oshi fief's lord, effectively killing him. A petition explaining the incident is sent to the shogun's council of elders. But salt is poured on the Oshi clan's wounds as the biased counselors decide not only to cover up the murder, but also blame the Oshi clan and abolish their fief. Shocked by the unjust decision to protect the shogun's image, a duo of Oshi samurai devise a plan to assemble the most loyal retainers to join a sure-death revolt against their lord's murderer. We meet our main character, Sengoku Hayato, who is the first of the revolutionists to be recruited by his lifelong friend, Sakaki Bara. Though initially resistant, Hayato agrees, believing that the future of Japan should not inherit a lawless and biased world. Meanwhile, Akiyoshi Gyobu, who is the Lord Nariatsu's chief retainer, advises the young lord that his life is quite possibly in danger by Oshi loyalists. The spoiled Nariatsu berates the chief retainer while also claiming he'll travel to Edo to speed up the Oshi clan's abolishment. A group of loyal Oshi samurai are seen on the highway planning an ambush against Nariatsu's procession, but are swiftly intercepted by other Oshi samurai and arrested. The small band of men are commanded to commit seppuku, but just before they plunge their blades into their stomachs, they are stopped. The arrest is shown to be a test of their loyalty, and the group of loyalists is recruited to join the revolt. Back in Edo, Gyobo is vigilant by raising security in the mansion, but realizes the young lord has gone out to drink. During Nariatsu's night on the town, he enters a whorehouse, where the assassins of the Oshi fief lie in wait for their opportunity to skewer him. The moment of truth approaches slowly, but the chance is blown as Gyobo arrives and drags the drunk lord from the building. The group of loyalists assemble in a hideout in Edo, where they discuss their failed attempt. The accusations fly as a drunken Ronin arrives, displaying his skillful swordsmanship as well as defending the loyalists from a group of Gyobo's assassins. The Ronin expresses his hate towards pompous lords and joins the Oshi samurai. Some time passes, and Hayato's brother-in-law, Kiyonosuke, arrives, much to Hayato's pleasure. Kiyonosuke's visit is not positive, as he hears rumors that Hayato has abandoned the Oshi domain to become a drunkard. Angrily believing the rumors, Kiyonosuke curses his brother-in-law and storms out of the house. That night, Hayato's wife, Orai, arrives with a note from Kiyonosuke. As the note is read, it is revealed Kiyonosuke is in Edo and plans to assassinate Nariatsu himself. Sadly, his attempt is foiled by Gyobo's men violently stopping him, giving Nariatsu the chance to cut down his would-be killer himself. News of Kiyonosuke's death reaches his brother-in-law, and Hayato plans an ambush in a thick forest outside of Sate. Returning back to the hideout, Arai is found dead by her own hand. Arai knew that her husband's fate was death, no matter if he was victorious or not, and decided to wait for him on the other side. Heartbroken, Hayato vows to see justice brought to Nariatsu. Gyobu plans on spreading a rumor that the young lord's procession will leave later that month, but instead leave earlier to dupe the Oshi assassins. Meanwhile, Oshi chief retainer Sakakibara is told by Elder Mizuno that they plan on reconsidering the abolishment of their fief, and that soon there would be good news. That morning, the group of revolutionists prepare their attack on the procession, using many traps. Moments before Nariatsu and his retainers arrive, one of the Oshi samurai, Toto, stops the ambush, delivering the news that the elders will retract their decision to dissolve their fief. This causes a divide amongst the Oshi samurai, as some still plan on assassinating the cruel lord. Eventually, Hayato prevails, and the ambush is aborted. The promise is quickly broken when Sakakibara is notified that the decision to dissolve the Oshi fief is still in action. Sakakibara, realizing that the promise made by the elder was to quell the assassination attempts, rushes to the Oshi loyalists to bring them the terrible news. Sakakibara reveals that he had cut his belly open for being duped by the elder's trick and tells them to kill Nariatsu moments before he succumbs to his wound. Hayato rallies his men and plans to ambush them before the day is done. A rainstorm forces Gyobu to stop the procession and take shelter in a nearby building, despite Nariatsu's protesting. Hayato and his men arrive shortly, surrounding the building using the low visibility of the storm as cover. The assault begins as the first wave of Oshi samurai attack, causing the security force to scatter in an attempt to defend their lord. Using explosives strapped to their stomachs, the Oshi loyalists blow themselves up, taking a large number of Gyobu's retainers with them. The second wave advances and capitalizes on the disorientation of the first wave. Nariatsu begins to retreat on foot, accompanied by Gyobu and a handful of his men. While running, Hayato confronts Gyobu, and the two men square off for a duel. The two samurai engage each other, with Gyobu outmatching Hayato with pure strength, but the Oshi samurai holds his own, despite being outnumbered by Gyobu's men during the skirmish. Eventually, the fight devolves into the two men fighting hand-to-hand in the mud over Gyobu's sword, ending with Hayato overpowering his rival. Nariatsu is found cowering in the back of a hut as Hayato vows to slay the lord. Nariatsu cries out for anyone of his men to save him, but his pleas are silenced by Hayato's blade. The Oshi retainer claims victory, but his moment is short-lived as Gyobu confronts him, barely clinging to life. The two charge one another one final time, falling to each other's blade. The head of Nariatsu is removed from his corpse, and the movie ends explaining that Nariatsu's death was covered up as death by sickness, and the unjust decision to abolish the Oshi fief was reversed by the Council of Elders. Sadaji Yoshida, who was a cinematographer for the Samurai Wolf movies, oversaw the shots of 11 Samurai. Utilizing tighter and less shaky shots, Yoshida's style centered around mostly focusing on clear angles and slowly zooming into the characters speaking. During fight scenes, Yoshida worked closely with choreographer Ueno Ryuzo to frame the action shots perfectly. Unlike the first two chapters, this ambush seemed less unorganized, which made it easier to follow the action. Instead of focusing on the acting, I'm going to focus a lot on the characters. Iechi learned a lot about storytelling and character development throughout the trilogy, and by far this movie has the best out of the three. Where The Great Killing displayed development that could rival most other dramas, the characters and their development here seem to fit better with the genre. The heroes are the heroes, but I think what makes the hero's journey the most meaningful is how awful the villain is. Yes, in 13 Assassins, we see one of the actions taken by Nariatsu, and we don't really see the terrible things Kofu in The Great Killing did. In this film, we see the persistent and awful mindset of the spoiled and arrogant Nariatsu. I really hate this man. When he is smirking and pining over the Oshi palace as he leaves for Edo, knowing his awful actions caused the fall of the domain. I just wanted to see this guy cut down in the worst way possible. Nariatsu is one of the best antagonists I've ever reviewed so far. We're giving clean and smooth action, with a decent amount of blood. Movements are smoother, and I saw very little to no erratic waving of swords. Choreography was tighter than the other two chapters, and there was also a variety of moves and kills as well. We saw someone using kunai at one point during the ambush, and the duel with Hayato and Gyobu was very entertaining. There was no use of shaky cam though, as that was Furuya Osami's specialty. I didn't get lost during the action, and I didn't find myself trying to figure out who was on the battlefield. I would though have been happier to see Nariatsu's death way more vicious than the single gut slash he received. But that's because I really hate him so much. Dialogue centers more around the emotional impact, opposed to strategy and politics. Hayato is given some of the best lines though, especially when he vows his final push to bring justice to Nariatsu. There were a lot of conflicts, and the only one I found very gratuitous was the argument between Hayato and Kiyonosuke. I really felt like the entire scene was pointless, and when it only led to the death of Kiyonosuke, I really didn't understand the inclusion. The movie and the narrative would have worked with or without Kiyonosuke's short-lived plotline. I can only assume it was to raise the stakes and solidify the antagonist's level of evil, but again, not very necessary. I already hated Nariatsu enough. Music is more prominent in this film. Godzilla composer Akira Ikefube would return after 13 Assassins to write the musical score. Fight scenes are more intense as Ikefube's music is piped in. Heavy brass plays as swords fly. The score gets slower and dark as the antagonists get an upper hand, thus making the stakes more impactful. We also get electric organ stings during important events. I actually found this movie as a great combination of both 13 Assassins and The Great Killing. It takes the best parts of both chapters and mashes them up in a plot similar to 47 Ronin. Clean and bloody action, a better musical score, and a very fun to hate villain. It doesn't subvert expectations. In fact, it ends very similar to many revenge tales. Does that hurt the film though? No. And that's thanks to the rest of the film's storyline. The runtime is also a positive, as it is the shortest of the trilogy, lasting only an hour and 40 minutes. That's ideal, as there's no room for fluff or many useless scenes. We're given the characters, the stakes, the conflict, and the resolution in that short period. Though it didn't win any awards, 11 Samurai is considered one of the best of the trilogy, usually close behind its predecessor. That's it. Not only is this the end of today's review, it's the end of my review of Iechikudo's Samurai Revolution trilogy. I hope you enjoyed my analysis of the third and final chapter, 11 Samurai. If you had a good time, please give it a like and comment down below your thoughts on the film. What is your favorite chapter of the trilogy? If you like to stay up to date with new content, please give Samurai Cinema a subscribe. I'm GojiraFerret, and as always, thank you for watching.